So I'm interested in questions. I've always been interested in questions. I think I've been interested in questions since I was a child, because probably the first couple of books that I had were the first 2 volumes of the Children's Encyclopedia by Arthur C. Mee. That was a collection of 10 volumes in red kid leather. I possessed the first 2. I also possessed the last volume. And in the last volume were all of the answers to all of the questions that had been posed in the first 9 volumes. So I learned all of this. So ever since I've been wandering around with all this knowledge, all these answers, looking for the questions that people might have that I'll be able to answer them. Like, for example, Lepidoptera. Anybody? I guess I got to keep on searching. It's actually butterflies and moths, isn't it, I think. So it takes me to a more serious question, which is what actually happens if we stop asking questions? And I know the answer to that. If we stop asking questions, we get silence. And silence can be a dangerous thing, deadly. There are many places around the world where asking questions can get you into terrible trouble. So some questions are more difficult than others. Some questions challenge more than others. And I think that theatre is a superb place for questioning or for making sure that students challenge themselves and challenge the things that go on around them. If we look at any kind of advanced literature course, we see Macbeth, King Lear, Hamlet, more carnage there than Schwarzenegger's Terminator. If you look at the curriculum in history and humanities, got wars, genocides, rape, female genital mutilation. There's literature teeming with struggles against plague, disaster, murder, suicide, and that's just semester 1. All right? It seems that we can read and study about all of these terrifying things, but please, don't put it on the stage. What gives people the sense that dramatizing controversial material is dangerous or harmful? What is it that gives people that sense of nervousness as they see depicted on stage acts of brutality? Well, I think we have to go back a bit. We have to go back to a chap that we've already heard about, this fella called Plato. See, for Plato, the arts, theatre, poetry, appealed to the emotions. And that made artists very, very suspicious people, because he thought that if you played to the emotions, you would harm people, you would prevent them from accessing the truth. The argument goes that rather than appeal to the emotions, we should be looking here at how truth can be achieved only through rational thought. The thing is, of course, we kind of agree with Plato on one thing. Indeed, he does move us. Theatre does appeal to our emotions. According to Arthur Miller, probably the most influential, important American playwright of the 20th century, up here, we see how, for him, in terms of looking at theatre, the passions drive us. It's passions that allow us to open up lines of communication between people, between man and men, between men and man, or mankind. And we have to agree. Indeed, it does. But should we accept that Plato's opposition is valid? I don't think so. I think theatre is in the ideal position to appeal both emotionally and intellectually to our young people, so that we arrive at actually a deeper sense of knowledge, a deeper understanding. I'd like you to take a look at some statistics that you might see up above me here. Just spend just a few seconds looking at that. I guess looking at that, you've got terrifying statistics, right? Horrifying. Now, I suspect if you were to go back to the original slide with the original question, by now you've probably forgotten most of those statistics. And in a way, you might be horrified, but for a blip. Doesn't make you mean, doesn't make you insensitive, doesn't make you a horrible person just because you can't remember how many rapes took place in South Africa last year, or in China, or in the UK, or in Egypt. Roughly 1 million. And that's the case every single year. So we know that, but it's precisely the kind of sanitized, desensitized nature of information that we come across, both in schools and in social media and on the news, that prevents us from really fully appreciating and understanding what happens when we try to engage with the controversial material I'm talking about. And I think we need to go to look at what the imagination does. See, the imagination, we need to reinvent. The imagination isn't some prissy little thing that allows us to invent something that's not really there. I would contest that imagination allows us to see things as they really are. Reality takes a lot of imagination. It takes a great leap of commitment, both at feeling and emotion and imagination, to understand and truly grasp what terror and what horror is. And our students are in the position of needing those kinds of questions. But I think there's a lingering suspicion, isn't there, that somehow watching theatre, kind of harms us mentally or emotionally. It might give us, the audience, a discomfort, and that we should be wary of that. I think we need to see what really happens when we actually witness acts of barbarity or acts of cruelty. There's a German playwright, Bertolt Brecht, famous Marxist playwright and theoretician. And he argues that when we witness sorrow on stage, we don't just see sorrow, we feel sorrow, and there's a part of us that somehow sees the sorrow that we feel. And in that sense, there's that certain detachment. And it's precisely the feeling and the emotion and the detachment that allows us to rise above the horror and to give us a sense of, it elevates us above that. I want to finish with a reference to the play Illyria, which we produced here in the Orsini before Christmas, a playwright by the name of Bryony Lavery. And she argues that confrontational theatre is absolutely necessary because it is through this safe medium that we can address and rehearse for reality. As educators, we fail if we do not address confrontational theatre. As educators, we fail if we cannot give our young people answers to the questions they're asking. Thank you.